Cal Poly. Cal Poly. They're small ball. They manufacture runs. They throw strikes. You're walking into hell and more.
I don't know.
America is still buzzing from West Virginia's walk-off win last night versus the Kentucky Wildcats. Let's talk about Cal Poly and how they're walking into hell, as well as a little bit of SEC talk as they pontificated another thing of West Virginia to the SEC. Should be fun topics tonight. Let's go.
You are Locked On West Virginia, your daily podcast on the West Virginia Mountaineers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, guys? Welcome back in. My name is Mountaineer Paul. I am your host here, and welcome back into Locked On West Virginia, where we're talking Mountaineer baseball again today this evening. And, man, I'm so excited to be doing it. I can't lie. I just never would have thought that the baseball program would have caught on this well. It's amazing to see. It's amazing to see, and you guys did it. Congratulations to you as West Virginia fans. We are elite, and thankfully we got the recognition we deserved again last night as the Mountaineers proved to the country why our fan base is elite on every single level, on every single page you want to turn. The West Virginia Mountaineers fan base in general is elite, not just the baseball fan base, but every bit of it. If we were good in soccer, we would be elite in soccer. If we were good in softball, we would be elite in softball. And so on this episode, we're going to be talking about a lot of that. What is Cal Poly in for this weekend? What do they have in store for West Virginia? Who are their best players? What kind of ball do they play? We're going to get into that a little bit. West Virginia to the SEC ever. This was something that they brought up on their show, kind of pontificating a little bit about it. West Virginia potentially ever going there, and because their arguments were the fit, regionality, fan base, all those type of things. So I'll look into a couple of that things there from the SEC perspective. What would West Virginia have to do if I were the SEC and grading them harshly? What would they have to do to actually get into the conversation if it was ever going to happen? It seems less and less likely as the years goes on, but we'll talk about that as well. So let's get started, baby. This one obviously going to be brought to you by our friends today at FanDuel. Right now, guys, with FanDuel, $5 if you want to make that bet. You can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins, but you can't win if you don't play. So make sure you head to FanDuel today to get started. And thanks for making us your first listen here and being a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're talking about your team, the Mountaineers, every single day. Okay, so first and foremost, West Virginia's atmosphere last night has caught a lot of attention. The who's who of the sports world were reposting the scene last night as West Virginia walked it off and sang Country Roads to a crowd of about 5,000 Mountaineers, if you don't count those that were on the hill. And it sounded like the football stadium at times. It was that loud. Great acoustics in there. And I think most people caught notice because imagine what West Virginia would do with an O'Brate-style stadium. What would West Virginia do if they could get 10 or 12,000 in there? I think that's next. That's the next move for Coach Saban's and company. And our fan base showed up and showed out with what they had. And I think that, it's like Jim Cornette, one of my favorite wrestling guys. He always talks about whenever he was a manager, he always talks about the times when he was managing in WWF when the fans went crazy. And he'd always say they're throwing babies into the air. I think they'll be going to be throwing babies into the air for this super regional versus Cal Poly as they come into Morgantown, walking into a hornet's nest. And I love the way that Jake Kane from Kane, if I can pronounce it correctly, good Lord, man, I swear sometimes it's like my mouth doesn't want to move correctly. Crane and Cone, if you haven't saw them, they're a great show. They do a great job over there. And let's play the clip in its entirety really quick as they talked about the Mountaineers, not only what's Cal Poly going to do this weekend, but West Virginia and the SEC, very interesting topic.
Cal Poly. Cal Poly, they're small ball. They manufacture runs. They throw strikes. You're walking into hell and more.
I don't know.
So interesting stuff there, right? And I find it to be quite notable, I guess, that the SEC was also brought up, just because West Virginia's fan base has always been SEC caliber. I think we know that. We appreciate that people, notice that about our fan base. But man, to actually get into the SEC is going to be an interesting conversation to have. But Cal Poly, let's get into them really quick before I forget to do the preview. I'm reminiscing about old times in my head and trying to do the show at the same time. So let's do a little bit of just a skin deep dive. We're going to go deeper into this as the week goes on. We're going to cover this like football. We're going to be talking baseball every single day. I think it warrants that. It warrants it, maybe more than that. But we're going to, on this channel, we're going to be talking baseball every single day and potentially twice a day if we can find the topics to talk about. So obviously they're going to be a preview with Cody at some point as well, because he knows a lot about baseball. I would also like to get somebody from Cal Poly in. I'm working on that as we speak. So we have a lot to do this week, obviously, and maybe even some player interviews. We're trying to work those out if we can. So this weekend is going to be a game that a series that I think what's on the line, and think about, well, I think here's where I want to start as we get into the Cal Poly breakdown. It hit me just now what West Virginia had to do and what had to happen for West Virginia to be in this position. This will be more prevalent next week if West Virginia actually wins this series. But think about this. If West Virginia beats Cal Poly, and I'm not saying that's a foregone conclusion at all. I understand they could beat us. You somehow are going to host a super that you never should have hosted, and on to Omaha with the path that, I mean, it's not been, think about the path. You've got Binghamton, you had Kentucky, Wake Forest, which is not easy. I'm not saying it's easy, but you totally miss UCLA. Totally missed maybe most people consider the best team or one of the 2-3 best teams in the entire field. Basically a 16 upset a 1 seed. And you get to play the 16 seed now in some way, although Cal Poly is not necessarily as low as a 16, but let's say you get to play the 10 seed now. That's what Cal Poly is, and you're a 3 seed, right? Or 4 seed, whatever. It's not the same seeding in baseball, but you get what I'm trying to say. West Virginia is probably they're like a 4 seed in basketball or something. You know what I mean? Something like that coming into this tournament is how I look at it. So, this is just an interesting matchup for a lot of different reasons. Similar style of ball. Both teams like to manufacture runs and get on base and do different things. But obviously, West Virginia comes in with the elite pitching. And I think that's obviously where West Virginia can separate itself here. And I think, think of it like this. West Virginia is 2 wins away from Omaha. Not a conference title, not a regional championship, not another step forward in the program. Omaha. Standing between West Virginia and the World Series of College World Series, is a team that Mountaineers fans probably haven't even watched a single inning of this year until the regionals. Now, I'm not saying that's you guys, but like the casual West Virginia fans are getting to know this team as we go through. Obviously, most of us has paid attention to them all year because they've been good all year. But to say that, how many fans can say they've watched every game? That would be an interesting poll. I would want to know the answer on that poll. The reaction I'm getting from the fan base around the country makes me think that a lot more people paid attention than maybe you would want to admit, right? So that's interesting to me. But Cal Poly is a team that comes in from San Luis Obispo, California. And obviously they just kind of walk through the Los Angeles-ish part of the regionals, and they can hit. That's what they do. They've won 39 games. They're a team that may be one of the most dangerous opponents West Virginia could have drawn outside of the obvious national powers. So we're going to kind of scout them out really quick. Like, who are their stars? What do they do? And can West Virginia get to Omaha? Because Cal Poly is obviously a warm weather team that never really has to deal with the things West Virginia's had to deal with from a weather standpoint. Could that play a factor? I haven't looked at the weekend yet, weather, but I would love to see what that looks like. Is it going to be a little chillier? Possibly. Will that impact Cal Poly if it happens? But, I think 39-22, Big West champion, conference champion. They were a regional champion now, and their first super regional in school history. So they've earned their way here. Head coach Larry Lee has been here for his 20th season this year. And so he's not a miracle. He's not a miracle. He's not working a miracle here. This is a team that is good most years. It's not a random hot streak. Like, they're pretty consistent from what I've been able to read about them and learn about them over the last 24 to 48 hours. So they recruit hitters, they develop pitchers, and they play the fundamental clean style of baseball. So basically they make you beat them. So, I think it gets interesting when you consider what they do. Most West Coast baseball teams are about bunting, stealing, manufacturing runs, and playing for one run at the end. So Cal Poly's not really like that. They're much more of a gap power kind of offense. They've got a 304 batting average with a 470 slugging percentage, 60 home runs as a team, 154 doubles, 404 runs scored, and 664 hits. Very solid numbers. And I think the doubles are what jumps off the page. You look at what they do with the 154 doubles is a ridiculous number. That tells you exactly who they are. They're consistently putting balls into the gaps. They aren't waiting on home runs. They're going to get them on. They're going to get them over. They're going to get them in, and they're going to hammer balls to all drives, line drives to all sides. So I think that's what makes them dangerous, because if you look at Ryan Taman, for instance, he's batting .362, 18 home runs with a 1.134 OPS and 84 hits. That's elite numbers, and could be one of the best pure hitters in the country, not named Gavin Kelly. And I think everything starts with him for them. Do you pitch around him in this series? I don't think West Virginia will. I've seen other people in other games talk about pitching around him. He's pretty scary because he's a complete package, man. 362 average. He's a hitter and a slugger combined, which is always a dangerous combination. And, a lot of college power hitters are 270, 280. He's hitting 362, which is elite. Alejandro Garza is their third baseman, and he's batting .325 with 90 hits, 21 doubles, and 50 RBI. He may be their most underrated player. He's a guy you're going to want to know about. He's constantly in scoring position, and he's the guy that turns things into those crooked numbers that they were talking about on the weekend. A couple other guys we'll get into here, because I think the one guy that scares me from a pitching standpoint is Casey Murray Jr., or not Casey Murray Jr., but one guy that scares me from a fielding percentage, is Casey Murray Jr. He's their center fielder. He's a .321 average, 77 hits and 31 RBIs. Really athletic, fast guy, good defender that gets on base and sets the table for them. So it's not a top-heavy lineup if you paid attention there. It just kind of keeps coming and coming. They've got like 7 or 8 guys that bat .315 or better. So this is going to be a team that hits for contact. You're not going to get a lot of strikeouts on them. I mean, maybe West Virginia will, but, West Virginia obviously has high-end pitching. But for sure, this is a team that I think West Virginia looks at as a team that is dangerous coming into this. They're playing well. Their best baseball is happening as we speak. And they're a little different than West Virginia in some ways. So we'll talk about why that is after the break, because West Virginia does things in a much different way. We'll talk about what next. All right, guys, talking about our friends from Indeed today. And if you got workplace chaos and deadlines stacking up, your inbox is overflowing, the one position you have to fill is still sitting open, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach what you're looking for as skills, experience, and location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. A stat that says it all is in the 1 minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So that's, if you want to spend less time hiring and more time actually interviewing candidates, this is the spot for you. And obviously, guys, if the listeners of this show are going to get $75 sponsored job credit, which is a big deal, I think most people would admit. And what happens is you get, basically premium status for your job, and it deserves it. And then you can do that by going to Indeed.com/podcast, Indeed.com/podcast right now, and support the show by saying you heard about it on Locked On West Virginia. That's Indeed.com/podcast, where the terms and conditions do apply. Do you need a hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. All right. In segment 2, obviously, we've got a diet do here for you. Interestingly enough, I think West Virginia in a pretty good spot here. The big difference between West Virginia and Cal Poly is the stolen base number. West Virginia is 122 on the year. Cal Poly's at 22. So once they get on the base paths, they're just not anywhere near as aggressive as West Virginia, obviously. So really quick. So we're going to be doing a back-to-back show tonight. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to make a couple points on this SEC thing. We're going to go ahead and end the stream, and then we're going to come back and talk about some of the football commitments and things and other things that we want to talk about, because I'm going to have one of the hosts from this show that made this statement. We're going to have them on tomorrow. I just spoke with him right before we went live here. We got our wires crossed. Actually, I thought he was coming on tonight. He's coming on tomorrow. So we're going to bring Mr. Kane on tomorrow to talk about what he feels about West Virginia, the SEC, and West Virginia as far as this super regional, and why he felt like they're walking into hell and all those different things I was going to get into. So I didn't want to wear it out too much, because we're going to have his name and their names. I'm telling you, his name is Jake Crane, and his co-host, his name is Blaine Crane. And just those two names, they mess me up. Every time I try to say it, I want to say the other one. Sometimes I want to say Blaine. Sometimes I want to say Jake. So anyways, West Virginia, the SEC, a couple points on that really quick before we go. I think a lot of people noticed yesterday that West Virginia had the atmosphere, the passion, the fan base, and all that. And I think it felt like an SEC event yesterday for SEC fans. And I mean, I saw a lot of SEC people mentioning that. So I would say the number one reason West Virginia people would work in the SEC is the fan base, right? I think that's where you point first. Our fan bases, they're elite and with an attendance. They're elite with they're very good, but television ratings, not elite. We're not putting 6 or 7s on the board million, but sometimes we'll do 3, sometimes 4. We've done a 5 here and there. But, obviously, and we need another team that's really big for that to happen. But as traveling fan bases go, there are not many people that can outdo us. And so I think our fan base checks every box. Culturally, West Virginia fits 100%. Tennessee, Kentucky, Arkansas, Ole Miss. I mean, come on, man. A lot better than Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah, unfortunately. But I'm not complaining, just making this point. Baseball is becoming SEC level at West Virginia is another thing that I would tick in West Virginia's favor. Steve Sabins is building something special. West Virginia just hosted a regional. Now they're hosting a super regional, and the atmosphere is getting national attention. So I think people are saying, hey, wait a second. That place is nuts, man. Geography isn't as weird as it used to be is another thing I would say. 20 years ago, West Virginia, the SEC sounded crazy. Today, the SEC stretches from Texas to South Carolina to Miami. Not Miami, but to Florida. So, yeah, interestingly enough, like West Virginia definitely was within that range. And I would say, geography isn't the obstacle it once was. The biggest argument against SEC in West Virginia is obviously going to be the television market. I think that, they're not adding Atlanta, Dallas, or Miami, or Charlotte even. West Virginia is a small state, and that does hurt. The academic profile is going to be brought up, even though, it's not the greatest in the SEC. It is something that West Virginia lacks in times. In Florida, Georgia, Texas, and Vanderbilt have really good research footprints. So West Virginia's improved. West Virginia's improved tremendously, but still a lot to get over hurdle for that. West Virginia, what do they add that the SEC doesn't already have? I think that's another thing that they would probably ask. Virginia, Clemson, Florida State, like those schools bring large markets and larger brands. So what does West Virginia bring that they don't already get? I think that's something. And so, those are probably just off the top of my head, a couple of things that you would have to consider in this situation. And what would have to happen, I think, is a pretty interesting one. I think number one, West Virginia has to win big in football, not basketball, not baseball, football. 9 and 10 win seasons for multiple years in a row will get you in that conversation. I believe that. you have to become the flagship program, the Big 12, I think. I don't know if you have time to do that, but that would have to happen. The SEC would need to expand again. So those are some pretty crazy scenarios that West Virginia would need to happen. And unfortunately, probably aren't happening in the way things are heading, actually may be getting worse. So thank you guys for being here. I have to get off here and get these other videos out. It's already 8:30. So we're going to come back and talk about a West Virginia football commit. As soon as I get off here, I'm working on it. I will see you guys here on the next one. Make sure you check out the Locked On Everydayer Club, and we'll talk to you on the next one here. We talk about your team, the Mountaineers, every single day. We'll see you in a bit. Don't forget to cue those country roads.